तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं सुखं भूतले सोऽहं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं सुखं भूतले
Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Yes.
Somehow your voice is not very clear.
I don't know, Mataji. I'm hearing after some time after I say it again, it will repeat it back to what I'm saying. So I don't know why. It did that yesterday too.
No, that was in the beginning, but because it's being recorded. But still, your voice is not very audible today somehow.
Oh, sorry, Mataji.
No problem. Okay, maybe somebody else likes to start reading. We are beginning. We stopped at Prithu Maharaj is now in the forest, and the heat and the cold. He is exposed to that, and still he is undisturbed with his goal and purpose of pleasing Krishna. And we stopped at his adventures in the forest. So anybody likes to start reading from here? The shriek of an animal.
I can do, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you.
The shriek of an animal pierced the night air, followed by loud roars. Vidura looked up, startled. One living being is food for another, said Maitreya. Indeed, said Vidura. This world is full of pain. Please continue telling me about Prithu. Maitreya said. As well as performing austerities, King Prithu mastered the pranayama breathing exercises. By virtue of his practice,
we'll pause there for a second. Remember in school we learned these principles like jivasya jivanam, the different types of animals, right? The one living being is a food for another. Remember we learned all this in I don't know, middle school, I suppose.
Food chain, food web.
Exactly. Yeah, Mataji, please continue. By the virtue of his practice,
all remnants of material desires disappeared from his heart, and he became fixed in spiritual meditation. Remembering Sanat Kumara's instructions, he worshipped the Lord day and night, strictly adhering to the regulative principles. His consciousness never strayed from Krishna, and gradually his love matured into unflinching devotion. Prithu became liberated from the bodily conception and realized his pure spiritual nature. He was detached from his material situation and saw the spiritual reality behind all the things. In other words, he became free from false ego and any material identifications. Perceiving the supersoul in his heart, he realized that the highest pleasure came from hearing and chanting about Krishna. The king fully engaged in those practices, abandoning the methods of jnana and yoga and the desire for. Can you take the next page, Mataji?
Put this baby milk.
Their results. Merging with God and attaining mystic powers. In course of time, he saw that the end of his mortal life was nigh. He fixed his mind on his spiritual identity in relation to Krishna and prepared to leave his body by the yogic process, which enables the soul's departure while the body is still physically and mentally healthy. He assumed the Muktasana sitting. He assumed the Muktasana sitting posture, blocking his anus with his heel, and gradually raised his life air upward from his navel to his heart, then to his throat, and then to the central position between his eyes. Finally, he brought it to the crown of his head. In meditation, he merged his life breath with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, the fire in his body with the totality of fire, the space in the bodily the space in the bodily apertures with the totality of sky, his bodily liquids with the totality of water. He saw the earth element of his body entering water, the water into fire, the fire into air, and the air into the ether. He then saw his mind, senses, and sense objects all systematically merged back with the false ego, and the false ego with the total material energy, Mahat Tattva. Vidura interrupted. It seems that at death, the creation process of Prithu's body was reversed. Does this always happen at the time of death, or was it specific to him? Maitreya explained that this only happens when a soul attains liberation. Imagine a mansion with many apartments which the owner rents out. Each apartment is furnished with various paraphernalia. When a tenant leaves the apartment and mansion, he returns the paraphernalia to its owner. But if he merely moves to a different apartment, he continues to use the paraphernalia. The apartment Archie, as I earlier mentioned, Queen Archie. Sorry, Mataji. The apartment is analogous to the material body we inhabit, and the paraphernalia to the gross and subtle elements of the body. At death, the liberated soul returns the elements to the owner of the material energy, but the conditioned soul gets a new material body. Excellent analogy, said Vidura. I understand it to mean that the liberated souls give up all attachment to his body and mind. Exactly so, said Maitreya. Prithu returned everything connected to his material body and mind to the Supersoul, the controller of all the illusory energy. He achieved liberation from material bondage by virtue of his knowledge, renunciation, and devotion to Krishna. He thus conquered. He thus conquered over the material energy and attained his original constitutional relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. Mataji, anyone else want to read? Mataji, I can stop here.
Okay. Anybody else likes to continue reading?
Okay. From where? The excellent analogy.
Vidura asked.
Vidura
Last
asked what happened to Archie. As I earlier mentioned, Queen Archie, being an ideal role model for all chaste ladies, followed her husband into the forest. Her body was very delicate as she had spent a pampered life in the palace. However, she voluntarily followed her husband, walking barefoot through the forest, although unaccustomed to difficulties, she practiced the same principle as her husband, eating frugally and sleeping on the ground. She became frail and emaciated. But because of the pleasure she felt in serving her husband, she was oblivious to her bodily condition. Please listen to how she achieved perfection. The elderly queen staggered under the weight of the heavy clay vessel. Water spilled out, wetting her emaciated body. The young son of a forest sage spotted her and ran over. He took the vessel from her and said, Mother Archie, you know my father has instructed me to help you. You are too old and frail for such heavy work. The queen rubbed his head affectionately. This is my service to my husband. The boy smiled. Your husband is as good as my father, so kindly do not protest. They walked towards her hermitage. When they arrived, the king was seated in the Muktasan within a ring of fire. Good morning, father, called out the boy. There was no reply. Archie patted the boy's back. He is deep in meditation. I will tell him later that you came by. Please put the water in the hut.
We'll pause here. Why is it echoing? Okay. No, it shouldn't echo. Yeah. Sometimes it echoes when more than one of us have unmuted or something. Okay. So I was wondering, it seems like the culture has been the woman is in the supportive role, and the man is the one who does the meditation and has that ability to connect. And this could raise a lot of questions when it comes to what about doing devotional service? Like, should the man be assisted? Like, usually the man is the one who goes out to work and comes home. So the woman has to do a lot at home, take care of the kids, take care of the home, make sure everything is good, make sure that when the husband comes back, she's in a good mood. Like that. At the same time, there are situations where dharma is not very black and white sometimes. Yeah, we are supposed to be sheltered by the father, right? But what about women who are not? What about women whose fathers were sexual abusers and drunkards and drug addicts? She obviously couldn't get protection, right? But then what about they have loser husbands? What is her dharma in that case? There are many, many situations where, if we come from a background where we were protected and we had decent families, traditional families, where the culture of protection was very good, and then it makes sense to say you should listen to your parents, right? But the whole Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world was exactly like kind of Hiranyakashipu Prahlad situation where Prabhupada took away many of the foreign hippies, right? The parents were all right, quote unquote, all right with the children taking drugs and being complete hippies. But as soon as they became devotees, many parents became angry and upset, right? And then we did have situations where even recently I was listening to somebody who the devotee got married, and then the guy was an addict, like an alcoholic, and started beating her and everything. And within 1 month, she had to run back to her parents' home. And the guy said, the guy was a Kantimala type of devotee, if you know what I mean. Means wears Kantimala, but is not really practicing or unable to practice type of devotee. So the guy said to the lady, young lady from a traditional family and everything, and the guy just said, "No, I'm not giving up alcohol. It's my life." And she said, "Well, if you were willing to at least give up, I will help you and support you in recovery." And the guy is like, "No, I'm not giving up alcohol. Alcohol is my life. I'm going to drink. I'm going to come home and beat you. This is what it is going to be." And anyway, the discussion is still going on in their family, what to do now. So I'm just thinking how, as easy as we may say, right, just be submissive to your husband, do whatever he says, right? But those principles needs to be applied with intelligence, and needs to be seen if the husband is a loser, if the husband is demoniac, if the husband is abusive, if the husband has habits and tendencies that will destroy the family. And also nowadays, I've seen a lot of these kind of narcissistic type of men who are wounded, who are hurt, and they come from family backgrounds which are very dysfunctional, and they have developed an attitude of, they're very, very scared, actually. They're very insecure on the deep inside. They do not want women to have any education or capacity to earn, because they are scared that the woman would not need them. So there are many levels and degrees of truth in Kali Yuga which needs to be analyzed, I mean, one thing is, oh, my husband doesn't really listen to me, or he's a little bit lazy, or he does not, that kind of stuff. I'm saying like heavy stuff like addictions and like I know one devotee family, very nice couple, very nice family. Even that Prabhu is very sweet, but the weakness, weakness of the mind, weakness of habits and samskaras. He's a gambling addict, and he used to lose money like anything, reckless gambling. He would just go one day and he would earn well, but then he would take that money and gamble away. So then he would lose everything. And their Guru Maharaj was very kind, very gentle, his Guru Maharaj, and he would try to tell the woman, because the woman came from a family of very traditional family, so she had to be preached that you need to look at the circumstance, practically what you can do, because she was like, oh, I'm just supposed to support my husband, but then Guru had to explain to her that no, it doesn't work like that. You need to be clever. You need to keep some money aside for situations like this, because it repeatedly happened. Actually, it was your Guru Maharaj, Rajesh Radhika, that was telling this Mataji. She's a very sweet lady, very sweet. So he had to explain to her that why it doesn't work like that you have to just follow him, that he will just go and throw away all the money. You need to have that, be nice, be sweet, but keep the money, But she was like very innocent type. They had 3 children. And at one point, they came on the streets because the husband just lost everything in gambling. He was like, no, this time I will win. You know how the gambling can be. And literally lost everything. He lost home, everything. And they were literally on the streets. Then slowly she had to build up herself, And I did like astrology reading to give her some support, some ideas how she can come, because she didn't work for so long. She was educated, but didn't work for so long. And it was like a tough situation. What do we do practically? What is dharma in these cases? So it needs to be defined case to case by case basis. We would have to see, right? And here, maybe like a feminist type of woman would say, oh, why only he will sit there in Muktasana and he's doing it, and why she has to go like an old lady, she has to go and fetch water, why can't he do that water work? There can be that. But the point being, the man here is qualified, this person is of a different caliber, and he deserves that kind of service. And I often said to many people, especially the kind of feministic mentality people, that when the husband is qualified, it's easy to be submissive. It just is natural, because our natural mood as a woman, if we are normal woman with not too much dysfunctionality and traumas and everything, we naturally like to be sheltered. We like to be protected. We like to be guided. It's not the other way around. It's not like, as I said, if we are wounded and scarred and traumatized and grew up in dysfunctional families, we may have problem with being protected. But otherwise, generally, we like being protected. We like being under an intelligent man who guides us. And sometimes even it's nice to be a little bit scared of the husband, etc. But the problem happens when it's not the case. And statistically speaking, I'm saying as an astrologer, Jupiter is the responsible planet to give a husband who fulfills the woman, makes her feel like, oh, I'm so happy with this person. He knows what's good for me. He brings me a sense of companionship. He helps me. He guides me in my spiritual life. That kind of feeling. It's possible only 33% of the time, which means 77% of the time, women don't have fulfilled marriages or a feeling of being understood, or a man who is guiding me, supporting me in my spiritual life. And it's the opposite. She has to push. She has to keep things together. She has to encourage the husband, please get up, please chant, please let's go on yatra. There is, most of the time, the case is the woman is more spiritually strong and the man is not that much, or in the other household aspect as well. So what I'm saying is, statistically only 33% of the women, statistically why I say, because the Jupiter's positions are possible only 33% of the time that the Jupiter is awake in the chart, because every planet is either awake, sleepy, or in deep sleep. So when Jupiter is in sleepy or deep sleep state, he cannot give a husband who is able to fulfill you and make you feel guided, make you feel safe and protected, and give you a deep sense of companionship. It's just not possible. And yes, it's karma, because we didn't make enough spiritual activities in our previous life. So Jupiter is not activated in this life. At the same time, when people come, like when women come expressing, I don't know how to do this, my husband is, they're very cautious to not criticize the husband. They really want to be dharmic, and they don't want to like say, oh, my husband is not good enough or something. They don't want to say that. They say, how should I do better? And when I look at the chart of the woman, I know that she's doing more than enough. But it's the guy who is the loser, and there's nothing she can do more. It's just that he is what he is, I just take it. He's not going to change no matter how much she does. So there are times that it's good to know that, hey, you know what, this guy's not going to change. This is his capacity. We can't say every person is a loser in that sense, but sometimes men just don't have that capacity to make you feel understood and uplifted, and think of what's better for you in your spiritual life, and guide you accordingly, and tell you do this, do that, step by step, guide you to spiritually achieve your purpose of life. They may not be. And in one sense, back then, it was a little bit easier. It was a little bit black and white. Hey, your husband is super qualified, okay? You go, you assist him, you bringing water to him and facilitating his meditation will give you the same result as doing the meditation, and you'll achieve the same result as your husband. My paternal grandmother, she was not very kind of religious type, and so my husband often said, but my grandfather was extremely spiritual and religious, and he met Prabhupada and super sadhaka, pure devotee. So when my grandmother passed away after my grandfather, recently my grandmother passed away. So my husband was saying she was super chaste, super. She was like, reminds me of Archie. She would always assist my grandfather, always sweet, never criticizes anybody, always in the mood of serving the husband. But she wasn't inclined to directly serve Krishna. She wasn't so much into bhajans and this and that. So my husband said, she's going to go where her husband went. Very clear, it's very clear. So depending on the mood of the woman, if the mood of the woman was, she was very dependent on the husband and very service attitude, and the husband was successful in his sadhana, she will attain the same result as the husband. Whereas I have the other maternal grandfather. My maternal grandfather was not spiritual, not spiritual like that. I mean, somewhat superficially religious, but nothing in spirituality was nothing in comparison with my grandmother. My maternal grandmother is a panditess. She knows whole Bhagavatam, he knows whole Mahabharata, she knows every character, she knows every song and bhajans, and every day she'll make garland, every day she'll do parikram, she'll go to pravachan, she'll go to lectures, and she was like super sadhaki. Even hidingly she'll go. She would defy the authority of my grandfather, but in a very clever way. She will never create a huge external fight. She always taught me, just do whatever is you think is dharma, you do it. Do it quietly. And so she will give charity. She will do garlands. I remember there was a time she was banned from leaving home or something like that, because she had a very monstrous mother-in-law also. And then so she would ask the flower wala. She made a hole in the kitchen's mosquito net, and she would receive flowers from that kitchen mosquito net from the flower wala. And then she had kept some, those days, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, they'll keep in the rice box now. So she took those little money and she will give to that guy to bring her loose flowers. And then she'll sit and make garland. Somehow or another, she had her own attachment to her deities, that no matter what happens, she'll make garland. And no matter what happens in that little room, the Indian people, when they turn around and pay obeisances in the same place, that kind of parikram, because no, she couldn't go out of the. So she would do that every single day, 108 times, every single day. And right now she's almost 90 and she lives in America, and she's super sharp in her memory, super sharp in her spiritual goals and everything. And I saw both examples in my life, that one grandmother had her own spiritual sadhana, and the other grandmother she had a very good husband. So I could see, I have some comments here. Rajeshwari Mataji is saying about dharma should be followed. Yeah. And then dharma gets cleared based on our situations and and everything. My grandmother, like for example, right, my maternal grandmother, she wasn't even allowed to cook for her kids. She wasn't allowed to touch her own kids because the mother-in-law was so heavy. So in that case, it is her dharma to take care of children, but the fear of such a terrible mother-in-law, she had to abide by that. The husband obviously was not supportive or respectful, or he didn't really respect my grandmother. But my grandmother was very respectable. She knew how to gain that spiritual strength. Even today, she will not talk bad about them. I saw with my own eyes what all she was called and how she was treated, but she kept taking shelter of Krishna. Yeah, Rajesh Radhika Mataji wrote, I think Krishna put in difficult situations so we can turn to him. I mean, if we are pious people, we'll turn to him. If we are impious people, then we will try to take revenge or hurt others. So anyway, this is a very interesting question. And yeah, Kanti Prabhu has written a lot about women. And, there is, what I want to say is, if we come from protected families, or if we do have husbands who are qualified, we shouldn't think that everybody should do what we are doing. Everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody's trying to do their best, but they may not be as lucky as us. They may not be as lucky as us. And we should be very careful when we give advice to people. If somebody comes and says, my husband is abusive, we should be careful to not say, hey, in Bhagavatam, you should just be humble and submissive to your husband. We could be making a mistake there. We should see how can you do your Krishna conscious dharma in a quiet way. I learned that from my grandmother. She understood what is her dharma. She understood that her dharma is not to tolerate abuse and get crushed under it. She understood that she has a separate dharma and she would do that no matter what. And she will say, okay. Externally to my grandfather, she'll say, okay. But then she'll do whatever she wants. She used to take advantage of every neglect of my grandfather. She'll fully take advantage to do Krishna consciousness. And then she'll just act dumb. If my grandfather comes and says, I told you to do this. Oh, yeah. I just somehow, something. I sat down and something happened. She will not argue. She will just not argue. Just amazing, So, and the other grandmother was really innocent. And my grandfather was super duper pure devotee. So she was protected in that way. In fact, in her last days, she remembered only one song she remembered of Krishna. Adisidal Yashoda Jagadodharana. She remembered Yashoda and Krishna's pastime and that song which says that she's thinking it's my son, but it's actually the Supreme Lord. And that was in her head, and she forgot everything. She forgot me. She forgot her son, her grandson. She literally forgot everybody and everything. And she only remembered this song. And in a day, dozens of times, she will sing this song with perfect pitch and everything. And she was in an old age home. So she would sing and everybody would be waiting. Her name was Meera, my grandmother. So everybody will wait. As soon as Meera will wake up, she'll sing this song. Before breakfast, she'll sing this song. Before lunch, she'll sing this song. So the whole old age home knew her as Meerabai, they'll call her. It was like a nickname. And she will sing this song. And the night before, she left on Akshaya Tritiya. And the night before, devotees went and chanted for her. All night they chanted. And then right after the chanting, she took Ganga water and everything. And Akshaya Tritiya, early mornings at sunrise, she left her body. After hearing whole chanting and devotees were there. And she had a very auspicious death. And when I was younger, I used to think she's not very religious like that. But later on, I thought like she just followed her husband, and she attained that destination. So these are important considerations, and we'll continue tomorrow. But thank you.